All right, it is now the stroke of 1 o'clock. Good afternoon. This is a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission, Region 3, Fiscal Year 21, Arts Project Support Grants Panel. I'm Nancy Stewart, an Indiana Arts Commission Commissioner and Arts United board member from Fort Wayne. Today is Thursday, April 30th, 2020, and we are meeting by conference call and streaming live from a webinar. We welcome applicants who may be listening in today and would like to remind you that you are muted for this review. There is no direct contact or conversation about the evaluation and disposition of applications before, during, or after the panel meeting. At this time, we would like the panelists and staff to introduce themselves, stating their name, occupation, and where they're from. And Steve, we'll start off with you.
Hi, thanks, Nancy. Steve Linsenmeyer. I'm with Mental Health America of Northeast Indiana. I started there last year after about 11 and a half years at the Embassy Theater.
Thank you, Steve. And Christine.
Hi, I'm Christine Meek. I'm the Vice President of Nonprofit Excellence at the Community Foundation of Greater Fort Wayne. And this summer, I will be celebrating, I believe it's my 17th anniversary there.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Stephanie?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Carlson. I'm the Development and Program Manager at the Fort Wayne Dance Collective. And I was, before that, previously 3.5 years at Heartland Sings as the Director of Development and Education.
Thank you, Stephanie. Sarah?
I'm Sarah Fiedelholtz. I'm the editor of Fort Wayne Magazine.
Thank you, Sarah. Anna?
Good afternoon. My name is Anna Ross. I'm Executive Director of Audiences Unlimited in Fort Wayne. I also play viola with the Fort Wayne Philharmonic.
Thank you, Anna. And Maria?
Hi, my name is Maria Davis. I am the Downtown Services Coordinator for the City of Angola.
Thank you very much.
And
Heather?
Yeah, hi, I'm Heather Clausen. I'm the Grant Program Manager for Arts United, and I'm also our Regional Arts Partner Representative for Region 3 to the Indiana Arts Commission. And I just want to take this moment to publicly thank all of our panelists for all of the time and energy and effort and expertise that they have contributed to this panel process. It goes very much appreciated. And additionally, I'd like to express my thanks to our wonderful facilitator, Nancy Stewart, for continuing to keep these grant panels rolling smoothly year after year. And we're also joined by staff from the Indiana Arts Commission, so I'll let Deanna introduce herself.
Hello, Deanna Polsma, the Grants Research and IT Manager at the Indiana Arts Commission. I'm here to help out with tech and assist if sound cuts out for anyone.
And trust me, we are delighted to have tech help. Now we'll begin the panel review. And this is how the process will work. I will announce the application. We will review and ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based upon the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please note and remember that the applications do not need to be recapped and or summarized since everyone has read it. Just provide your comments. After the first reader is finished, I'll ask the second reader to present any new, additional, opposing comments, different points of view. We are not looking for consensus, just a full evaluation from the different panelists' perspective. After the second reader is finished, I'll open the discussion for final comments. Remember, in the interest of time, we are only looking for new, additional, or opposing points of view. You'll hear that a lot. And we do have several panelists that will have a conflict. And with Deanna's help, we will move you into the waiting room and then anxiously await for your return. Finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, we will ask the panel to update their scores on the online system. And it can be common for scores to change as a result of this broader discussion. And those scores are automatically saved. Are there any questions? Then let's begin with the Bok Colloquium, Fort Wayne, and our first reader is Steve.
Thank you, Nancy. The Bok Colloquium, they've been around for quite a while, 18 years. This organization has a very clear artistic vision backed by a process to enlist a diverse and experienced group of artists with the goal of producing and presenting excellent performances that continue a musical tradition while allowing performers at all levels to pursue and improve their skills. As in the creative and administrative activities, the organization has made true community engagement a systemic part of their operation. Their goal of wishing to perpetuate and preserve a historical musical craft is well served by efforts to attract, solicit, and act on feedback from stakeholders and new audiences. I think most impressive in the artistic and administrative portions of this application, we see that this organization has been, for the last 5 years, preparing for the 2021 departure of their artistic director. They've taken into account the artistic impacts. They have been doing trial runs with visiting artists and querying their musicians as to how they think they've done. They've had a business plan in place since last year. It's very impressive to see the entire organization focusing on its future, even while it has a very active and engaged artistic director. That to me stands out for the most part. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Anna, for filling in as second reader.
Yeah, so in my review of the artistic quality, I would have liked to have seen a few more examples and information about their seminars and workshops and their outreach activities. I think they had a long list of the Baroque guest artists, which was wonderful, but I think that space could have been utilized a little bit more effectively to help us understand artistic quality a little bit better. I think the partnership with Club O is very good, and I had a question about the collaboration with inner city churches, whether it's a true collaboration or just inserting information into their church bulletins. I think that one more thing that I wanted to mention, a couple more things. The project activity wasn't very thorough in the timeline for the project management, and there's no real indication of the coordination and implementation of the education activities and workshops or outreach. And so that was hard to judge what actually they're doing and the numbers they were doing. And in the financials, there was a jump in grant revenue from the projected 21 grant revenue of $26,300, whereas the previous year was $6,350. But I'd like to see how they that grant money, what they're expecting in new grants, and then also in paying for facilities went from $1,050 to $6,400, not including the in-kind. But it is a very high artistic quality institution.
Thank you very much, Anna. And I'll now open it up to the entire panel for anything that is new and or different and or opposing.
Hi, this is Sarah. One of the things that I found that I was concerned about is with the community engagement. They indicated that the majority of their attendees are over 65 plus, and I would like to see some of their community engagement and outreach to be looking at how they're going to generate and continue to grow their audience. They have a very small group of children who attend the performances. I also felt that through a lot of their marketing and social media materials, that they are reaching to people who already know about them or have an interest in the type of music that they perform, and not necessarily encouraging people who don't necessarily have an interest in this type of music or experience to want to come out and participate and engage with their performances. So I would like to see more of them reaching out to those who may not know about them, and also to a wider variety of demographics.
Any other comments? Thank you then, and I would ask you please to finalize your scores. And moving along then to Bishop Luers High School, the first reader is Stephanie.
Hi. So in reviewing this application, Bishop Luers is a theater troupe comprised of students from Bishop Luers that venture out into the community to impact individuals with disabilities and those more advanced in age at senior living facilities. And in addition, these students put on a full production each year. In the section of artistic quality, I would love to have seen more specific information about theater workshops. They mentioned them, but I would love to have them give a little bit more of an explanation of what those workshops would look like, what happens during these workshops. This is referenced a little bit later in the application process, but I would still like to have had a little bit more specific information. It also mentions that there are 2 to 3 day theater workshops for underserved students and community members and advanced in age, and I would like to know a little bit more about the demographics that would constitute the underserved students and community members. It's mentioned that funding will be used for costumes, props, makeup, theater production, equipment, fees, and transportation. In the budget itself, those line items are referenced, but I would have loved to have seen a little bit more detail within that as well. I would like to see information about the audience feedback from previous years. This isn't the first year this has been happening, and I would love to see in those communities where they went out, participant feedback, more detailed specifics about what the students will learn and gain during the project, how they felt, how do these skills help the students in everyday life, do they have social or academic benefits, just a lot more detail there would be wonderful. I love that the program is all inclusive for any student at Bishop Luers, that everybody can join. But I'm curious as to whether or not there was a sign up or audition process for determining the parts or participant roles. It's mentioned that it's 90% student led, but I would love a little bit more detail as to how that's broken down, what exactly each student is doing and how much is comprised within that. I would also love to know about how the community is involved in determining this program. What have members of the community or participants that you serve told you specifically about the program? In community engagement, again, I would love to see more information about the specifics of the program. What are the demographics of those that you serve, and how do you determine these demographics? Have you had any interest from specific community partners, and who have you worked with in the past? What feedback have they given you? I think it would be great if you got some positive feedback, which I'm sure you have, to maybe include that within the application, some anecdotes from those who have worked with you, some of the students. It would be great. This would be a great place to kind of put some stories in there about those people that you have served. And also, when you mention within this application, the elderly individuals and individuals with disabilities will participate in quote unquote similar styled workshops geared towards their specific needs, I would like to see some examples of what that would look like. What are their specific needs, and how did you obtain that information? And then also, who are the adult leaders that work with the students on that cafe murder dinner? I think you referenced the different jobs, but I would love to know who those specific people were, and maybe some of their the resumes, or not necessarily resumes, but more detail about how they have been given that position. And then if you're asking community members for feedback via surveys and conversations, I would like to know the return rates on the surveys in the past and some of the comments from previous years and what has been said, and then how that helps you determine things in the future. And then just a general rule, just remember within these applications, and this can be for everybody, please remember that the only information that the panel knows about your organization is the information that's included within this grant request. The more detail you can give and the more specifics you can give, the better understanding it will be for the project panelists, so they'll understand exactly what your intent is. I know we all know our organizations really well, but the panelists don't necessarily know your organization that well. And I would love to know more about how these students and how these individuals with disabilities and those advanced in age have benefited from the program, because it seems like an amazing program. And finally, within the project management section, I would like to have more specific information about the people that will help out with the productions. So more specifics. Are they students? Are they members of the school? And how were they determined? But overall, I think it's a great program. I love that you're going into the community. I love that you are engaging individuals at senior living facilities and individuals with disabilities, but it would just be wonderful if we could have more details about that information.
Thank you, Stephanie. Christine, do you have anything to add to that?
Probably the only thing I would add is I thought it was, I appreciated reading about the expansion of the program, and it appears that it's been very thoughtful and based on participant and audience feedback. And that's it.
Thank you. And opening up to the panel, do you have anything different, opposing, new? Alrighty then, let's finalize those scores, please. Okay, we will move along to the East Allen County Schools, and Sarah is our first reader.
Just a quick note, Stephanie had a
Oh,
conflict of
sorry.
interest and she is in the waiting room.
Oh, good. Thank you very much. I missed that one. And she'll be there for 2. I just want you all to know that. Sarah.
Yeah, so the East Allen County Schools is looking to expand based on the number of first grade classrooms that will be participating in its arts integrated residency program at Southwick Elementary School, which is a Title I school. And it's the idea of it is really to bring in artists from Heartland Sings to provide and engage the students within the arts, as well as using music and the arts to help expand and increase their learning. Sorry, shh, come here. That's, come here. And what I think is really incredible about the program is that sorry, hold on. Sorry about that. What's really impressive is how the Heartland Sings and the school, Southwick Elementary, have really worked together to create this program and really to integrate it very comprehensively into the first grade classrooms and provide such a rich experience for the students. The only issue and they are doing extensive monitoring of the students and their involvement. However, the basis of some of the evaluation and criteria for evaluating the structure and the type of content of the program was based on evaluating 3 years consecutively of monitoring, I guess, the data from the students. And the 3rd year would have been this school year. So that may take a little longer, but they seem to be very on top of monitoring the students, ensuring that they get a lot out of it, and also that the program itself is very rich in meeting all of the various educational requirements.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sarah. Second reader, Maria. Maria?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. I had a couple of things. I thought that the videos were really helpful in seeing the impact on the children. It's good to see that they are enthusiastic about the program. I would have liked to see more detail on the survey that's referenced in the project description as to the high demand. Also, I'd like to see more information about how specifically the program impacted the students' performance levels. It's mentioned that underperformance increased to performing at or above grade levels, so I think that would be helpful as well as far as the artistic quality area. Again, the YouTube videos were very nice, and I also thought that that Wayne TV video was very instructive and showed quite a lot. Sometimes pictures, you know, pictures tell have 1,000 words. What am I saying? I don't know. I did really enjoy actually seeing the kids. That was great.
Thank you, Maria. Now, as a general panel, does anybody else have anything new, different they'd like to add? Then I guess we're ready to score. Thank you. Now, Easter Seals Arc of Northeast Indiana. Christine's our first reader.
Sure, this is for Art Adventures for 2020, 2021. Some of my general thoughts on this were from the artistic standpoint. I really appreciated in the application, the agency noted that when this originally started, they were using in-house staff to run the program, but they have since gone to contracting outside artists. And they did mention that it not only does it provide a better experience for the clients, but that it is really playing well with their staff, then can do the more of the, you know, the higher level stuff, and it helps with that. So I really appreciated that it was enriching the client experience. And then as far as the community engagement, honestly, it was interesting to read that the agency really sees this program as almost a stepping stone for their clients. So by having these artistic experiences in-house, they're really kind of prepping the clients, those with disabilities, to then be able to go out into the community and experience, you know, these artistic places out in the community. And so I really appreciated reading that, and I thought that was a great way. And it appears that there's also in project management, I thought the planning process was very well thought out, as the budget seemed very achievable. Everything seemed to be appropriate, and they showed that staff has the experience to carry out the project.
Thank you very much. Second reader, Steve.
I think Christine touched on most of the points I would, but it is exciting not only to see this organization has clearly identified its audience and their needs, but it's taking feedback from their consumers and to figure out how to best help them and become integrated with the community, as Christine noted. It seems like a very strong effort on behalf of their clients.
Thank you, Steve. Now, as a general panel, do we have any other additional comments? Anna.
Yes, thank you. I have some comments. Since this is an arts application grant, while what Christine and Steve said is true, I think it's lacking basic information about the specific artists and musicians who are and dancers that are leading these sessions. What was their background or credentials to ensure they have the skills and expertise in the specific discipline? For example, maybe there was a mention of the musician who came in 50 times, but is he a music therapist? We had no information. So I couldn't really gauge if the artist would provide authentic artistic experiences and according to and addressing the consumer's own individual abilities and needs. So it was difficult for me to determine artistic quality in those specific instances. In the community engagement area, specifically in regards to the evaluation, I think their evaluation process is incredibly good and well organized. What I'm not seeing is the evaluation of the arts projects. Perhaps something such as the percentage of consumers that perfected focus on an arts instructor, or the percentage of consumers that interacted through verbal and nonverbal manners and movement to the best of their abilities, or consumers that perfected a choreographed dance routine. I didn't see any of that reflected in the evaluation of the arts experiences. And since this is an arts grant, that was a concern of mine. Then also, there's no mention of the artists or musicians or creative leaders in the timeline or planning or evaluation. So I'm just really unable to clearly evaluate the creative arts offerings and activities for those specific areas of the music and art that's coming into house. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Are there any other additional comments?
Yes, this is Sarah. One of the things that I had questions about was the specific targeted audience of the program, because initially they say that they have a evaluated or group of 360, a pre-established group of 365 adults, yet then they begin to talk about the targeted population where they say that transition age youth with disabilities, ages 14 to 22 years of age, are their fastest growing consumer group, as well as seeing an increase in in-home schooled students. So I didn't really understand if they are, who they're really including in the definition of adults. That would not necessarily include their fastest growing group in the youth, as well as the in-schooled students. So I would like to see that if those are some of the fastest growing groups of their demographics, I would like to see more inclusion of those individuals within those that will be participating in the program. And I would have liked to understand how they came up with this pre-established group of 365 adults and why they didn't include these other demographic groups that they target and help.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any other additional comments? Then let's go ahead and finalize our scores and let Stephanie come back in out of that waiting room.
She is back in.
Stephanie's back in. Thank you very much. You all are doing a great job of moving this along. And while I would like to say in some years, I have read the applications, while I have enjoyed the bits of summary that I have gotten and some recapping that I have gotten or heard, I would like to encourage us to please remember not to summarize and recap, to focus on the strengths and opportunities in your comments. Thank you for understanding that. To move along to the Fort Wayne Artists Guild, Sarah, thank you for filling in as reader number 1. Sarah?
Hi, sorry about that. The Fort Wayne Artists Guild have done a very good job of creating programming the month prior to the Kikanga Plein Air event to engage the community surrounding Fort Wayne to be able to learn about the plain art painting, and they really are doing a great job of getting the reach out to for people to then attend the festival event in Kikanga. I would have liked to see some, again, there was a lot of assumptions made that people understand what plain air painting is. And I would have liked to see ways in which they would be engaging and reaching out to possible people who are not necessarily understanding what plain air art is, and providing them with more opportunities to learn about it. I also would like for the community engagement beyond just having exhibitions of some of the very talented plain art artists. It would be great if there were actual workshops and opportunities for people in the community to have an opportunity to take a class or just experience it themselves to get a better understanding of what it is and how it's different from other types of painting. But I think that they really are really encouraging and being involved in helping to find a way to extend the awareness and get people, which is one of the hardest things to do, to go to an event by experiencing it in other formats or venues.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and for filling in there. As Sarah assumed the responsibilities of the first reader, we will have the panel as a whole serve as second readers. So now I would entertain any new, additional, different comments, please. Am I really hearing zero?
I think the financial report and the budget was very well thought out.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, then let's go ahead and finalize our scores, please. And as we move along to the Fort Wayne Downtown Economic Improvement District, otherwise known as the DID, Maria gets to go to that waiting room.
She's in the waiting room.
She's in the waiting room. All right, Anna's our first reader here.
Yes, thank you. Let me, if I could just pull it up. It takes a second to get it all right.
We're all learning by doing it.
It's all on the screen, right? Okay, thank you. In regards to artistic quality for this project of the mural, there's a great partnership with DID Art This Way and Visit Fort Wayne. The project supports the community's commitment to public art. The mood board to help the artists understand Allen County is fantastic, but it does not mention the importance of arts in our community. Architecture is mentioned, and other than a quick mention of Sweetwater, there's nothing about the many arts organizations that enrich our community to help inform the artists about those opportunities as well. So the project description lacked information about specific art activities other than the mural, such as the Meet the Artist event and mentorship program were mentioned in the participant list in the timeline, but no description in the project itself. As far as community engagement, the strong committee representative of community stakeholders is very good, and they have a good understanding and recognition of the county's diversity of the residents. Inclusion and accessibility through the name plates is excellent, so that people can, with Braille or other ways, be able to understand the artwork. And great partnership with events in the future with future tourism and public art initiatives. However, the description was lacking any clear evaluation plan or activities concerning arts experiences, exposure, and learning through hands-on engagement. Some suggestions I had were maybe create a video and a photo journal at the festival, including the progress of the mural, having the mentee document their learning experiences daily, work with school teachers to develop some art learning objectives and assess. So those, that evaluation piece was really missing in this, except for how many people. Now, participation numbers should have also been included in the audience members. They did later mention that they were anticipating 3,000 attendees. They had great PR February plan and information release. And as far as project management, the timeline was very specific to Allen County, but it was lacking in some content. Some of the things like the launch of the festival and the time frame, the meet and the greet, artist information, and anything about the evaluation. The budget was very realistic, and this is a great project, and I hope that if this project is funded, that this kind of information will be included in the final report.
Thank you very much, Anna. Stephanie, anything new or different to add to that?
I agree a lot with everything that Anna said. I just want to add for the artistic quality section, it's mentioned that the artist selection process, my question would be, what is the project leader's juried process? It's quote unquote, that is mentioned, and it was mentioned a couple of different times, and I was curious as to more detail would be very helpful with what that would actually be. A little bit more specifics in that, to actually define what that juried process looks like. I would also like to know more information about what tools and methods will be utilized to measure the project's impact. And And I agree with Anna about the project activities timeline, I think, and just any more detail that you can give the panelists in general, just to help us understand, is just very helpful.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Does anybody have anything else they would like to add?
Yes. I think that it was not made clear how this grant application tied into the overall Make It Your Own Mural Fest that this is going to be a part of. And so what I wasn't clear about was, is this additional funding, or how they needed to go about getting a grant for, do each of the counties have to get a grant for their own mural to participate? I felt that there needed to be some more background of the relationship between this project in Allen County and the overall Mural Fest program. And also because the Downtown Improvement District has such a robust public art mural program through Art This Way, I wasn't really clear in understanding how this specific mural project was different or going to be different than other of their endeavors through their Art This Way program. And in regards to the artists, I would have liked to see if, even though it's going to be juried, I would have liked to see if they are going to give preference to local or regional artists instead of, because I know that there's been some talk that they were going to do also for artists outside of for the region. So I would have liked to see if that's going to be an area of focus of how they're going to select the artists and the importance of that. And then also they talked about how they were going to incorporate the the unveiling within the bigger art crawl, and I would have liked to understand how that was going to be different in relation to this program than it has been in what they have done in the past.
Thank you. Is there anything else anybody would like to add?
Real briefly, I think it might be part of my confusion over which attributes of this were for the 11 county effort and which were for the single Allen County effort. But for me, the marketing and administration and events and awards costs totaling $11,000 in this budget seemed high to me.
Thank you.
For me, it seemed important to distinguish why this project was separate in its own, even though it's part of the bigger 11 county region. So that was my look. I was looking for how it was different.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of confusion, and maybe in part for the applications like this, that there should have been a component or some addendum provided by the Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership about the Mural Fest and what they're contributing, because I agree with Steve that it's unclear if the DID is responsible for the entire 11,000 or where the monies are coming from. So I think that that would have been helpful, and also because it would have ensured that they're all presenting consistent information about being involved in the Mural Fest, and I think that would have helped the application.
Okay, are we ready to score this one? All right, then let's go ahead and do so, and we can bring Maria back in because we really need her for the next round.
She's back in.
She's back in, terrific. Okay, the Fort Wayne Sister Cities International. Maria is our first reader.
Okay. Fort Wayne Sister Cities. Now, for artistic quality, I am impressed by the logistics that were described. 35 people flown from Brisbane, getting them housing, keeping them here from 8 to, in July for several days. Logistics are amazing, pretty global. Now, in looking at the videos, the craft of the clothing and the performances, the videos were incredibly helpful to show the artistic quality. It appeared to be very high. as far as the performances, and also the costuming and the craft, the singing, all of the performance. In the community engagement, I thought it would be helpful for this particular evaluation if the marketing materials and links provided had more content indicative of the audiences that that are represented and talked about in the application. Perhaps more videos or images of audience reactions to the performances. They did have a lot of videos where they strictly showed the performers, but I would have liked to see more information as far as the reaction of the audiences and how they were feeling about it. I'm, again, very much appreciative of the work that the organization does to maintain these global connections, to promote cultural appreciation and understanding. And again, this looks like an amazing global undertaking. And the number of performances I thought was pretty impressive, and I'm glad that they were able to do several different locations in order to maximize the number of people that are able to see the performance. That is a difficult thing as far as getting those 35 people to perform at different locations and establishing what they do have to offer as far as the idea concept. So kudos for that. And I think it would be helpful for the evaluation to have more information as far as project management about the responsibilities of the project manager and how it relates to experience, and more about the committee in that section of the application. Those are my comments.
And thank you, Maria. And our second reader is Anna.
The only thing for me to add is say that the partnerships for the residency are well thought out and will reach many, many community members. And it's a great use of feedback and planning and the proposed implementation.
Thank you. Does anybody have anything different to add? All right, let's finalize those scores. Thank you. Are you walking, David? All right, we're ready to move on to the Gaslight Playhouse, and Stephanie's our first reader.
Okay, I'm pulling it up, sorry. I'm working on double things. Okay. So for this application, I would just like to start with saying what I love about this application, or what I love about this program that they mentioned, is it's Noble County's longest running community theater. So it's the Gaslight Playhouse. One thing that I would love to encourage for a lot of the applicants is to make sure to read the questions and the what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, like it escaped me. What the IAC has asked you to do. So for example, in the project summary, they're asking you to write a short description of the proposed project and how the funds will be used. And it's very clear that this description will go on the website for IAC. So I just want to encourage the this organization to really look at that, because one of the things mentioned is that it's a collaborative holiday celebration. So it's obviously going to be, this money will be supporting the holiday celebration, but then it goes on to talk about how grant funds will be used, and some directors and some artists may also be paid for their expertise, as well as royalties and costumes and sets. This is your chance to really showcase your organization on the website. And so I think it would be great for you to lead with the fact that it's Noble County's longest running community theater, because I think it's great. And there's a lot of exciting things that are happening for this organization. And so I think maybe leading with those instead of just the logistics within this project summary would be very helpful. In artistic quality, I would like to have a little bit more information about the project details year after year. I think it is super exciting that they have a new venue that will aid in the growth of the production. And you mentioned that you look forward to growing the program immensely, but I would like to have more specific details about what immensely would look like for your organization. I would caution to use words like immensely without some kind of evidence and data to back that up so that the panelists know what exactly that looks like. Like, how has that changed and how would that grow? And what is that definition of growth as it pertains to your organization? I would also like to know who the artists are that will be taking place in this production. Like, how exciting that there's multiple art forms, dance and music and different things, and it's growing, but who will be doing those art forms? I know that you kind of mentioned more specifically later that community partners will help with this, like ARC in Noble County, but who else have you partnered with to be able to make this happen? So I would like to have a little bit more information about that. And in addition, I would like to see more information about specific performers of all abilities and ages with a variety of talents. Once again, I would caution you about overgeneralizing, and please add more details for us as panelists so that we can understand who these performers are, and maybe who you can reference who the artists in the past have been that have participated to help us greatly understand who would be participating in the next coming years. And then I would also like to know a little bit more about your audition process. It is a community theater, and how will you select your performers and participants? I know it's briefly mentioned, but more detail would be much appreciated within this artist section. In the community engagement section, the possibilities on the horizon for this organization are very exciting and very promising. I love seeing how it will be able to grow, but in general, I would just like to see more detail. For example, I'd be interested to see the return rate on the surveys conducted and more specific detail about the questions asked in the surveys. You mentioned that the surveys were sent to members, and so as a panelist, I would like to know who constitutes members. Are you only sending these surveys out to people who buy tickets for shows? Who are the members? Are they people that support the organization? I think more specific information would be helpful here. I would also like to see more engagement in the community regarding the development, planning, participation, and evaluation of the project. When you mention talking to the community and surveying them, I think more specificity about how have they helped develop and plan and move forward with this? Like, how great is it that you're getting the space? What was the process that you guys went through to be able to get this new space? And then please remember that, once again, that the only information we're given is the information you give to us. So more detail, the better. And then in the project management section, I would like to see more information added about the background and experience of the participants and directors. I would also like you to be more specific about the areas of expertise for these directors. How many years have they directed? Have they had successful productions? Or do they have the ability to lead a larger scale production? What is their background? And I would like to see more detail, I think, on the project timeline as well, and regarding the project budget. So you have, how much will the tickets cost? How many tickets do you anticipate that you will sell? And that way, because there's within the project budget, there's a very, very broad generalization of how much that will be. But I would like to know, I mean, how many people does it seat? How in the past, how many tickets have you sold, and kind of where those numbers are coming from? And then will there be any other funders for this project? But overall, I'm excited to see where this organization is going to go and how exciting it is that they have a lot more potential coming up, and they have a long running history of being an organization. And I think that is something to celebrate within that. And I would love to see that also added into the application.
Thank you, Stephanie. Maria, anything to add?
Yes, in the artistic area, I felt I didn't have enough documentation to understand the scope of the artistic merits of the project. I would love to know the estimation of audience reach for this year as opposed to last year, as an example, to be very much more specific about some types of information that I'd like to see. Also having more information about the audiences. I really commend the group's intent to connect with various organizations. It's very difficult when there's an exponential growth to see you know, to anticipate what could possibly happen in that. More information concerning connections and the connections, their collaborators and their involvement. More imagery as far as the social media of their audience that to be served would be helpful. Elaborating on the outcomes of input. And I'm curious about the number of artists involved because it's listed as 0. I'm wondering what the definition is, that's being used to define artists in consideration of the explanation of those involved and then the totals. There's a little bit of a disconnect for me on that one because there are mentions of musicians and I'm not real sure, dance studios, band members, but it says the totals are 0 for artists. So I was curious about that. And I think that's all my additional comments.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have anything new to add?
Yes. I had overall concerns that it was referred to as a holiday celebration, yet holiday was never defined. And from looking at the photos that they supplied and even the artwork for the calling out of open auditions and such, it made it seem that this was more of a Christmas pageant or a Christmas focus type of program than a true holiday, which would then incorporate some of the music and, you know, dance and drama from other holidays and religions that also take place during the month of December. And I also felt that because there was sort of the assumption of what is the definition of holiday, and I felt that that did not ensure that this would truly be inclusive for the entire community. And I also felt that they really didn't describe in the project summary how they were going to incorporate some of the other religions and faiths and experiences into the creation of the holiday celebration, because they referred to a lot of it of traditional performances. And I didn't know what traditional performances are, again, because I did not know what their definition of holiday was. And they sort of said that they were going to tap into the Hispanic and Burmese culture in the surrounding areas, but they didn't say what tap into means. Is that more for audience or is that more for content of the program? They also, in terms of looking at trying to be something for the community, even though they may not necessarily have large members of their specific community of certain races or religions, it would be great in terms of focusing on holiday that they also include some elements from those holidays, i.e. Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Three Kings Day. So I really had that they really did not very clearly define for me what holiday is and how truly they were going to make this inclusive, both for based on the content of the programming, as well as to ensure that they were appealing to a broad range of the community members and that it would reflect that diversity.
Thank you, Sarah. Anna.
I'd like to jump in about the financials. The budget to me, they listed $1,000 in artist fees, $1,000 in director fees, and $1,000 in costumes. But we really don't understand who the artists and the director fees, if it could have said in the past, this is an example of who would have been, something to that nature. But for me, looking at it, then for the financial statements, that an actual balance sheet financial statement really wasn't included at all. And then the P&L, the profit and loss statement, was very different from the new proposed budget for 2020. there wasn't anything in the P&L from last year to talk about costs for programs, artists, directors, and costumes. They had a line item for $4,700 for miscellaneous, but even if you say that those are included in that, that's only, that is taken up in one performance here. That's the holiday, and we know they have more than that. The other thing is marketing expenses for P&L. On the P&L last year were $191,076, and the budget for the holiday performance was only $1,500. So I'm wondering how they got such a huge number on the marketing. So the financials were a real concern for me.
And again, I'd also like to jump in again about making sure that this is, because this is the Indiana Arts Commission, the importance of making sure that when you are doing something that has tentatively a religious association to it, that they ensure that that is not the focus. Because even when they suggest for the auditions, they say that they would like people who are coming to audition to be able to be prepared to sing a Christmas song. And that, you know, automatically sort of eliminates a lot of people who would possibly want to be involved in this production and performance. So I really would encourage to ensure that when they are applying for grants, that possibly there is some kind of religious association to it, that they make clear how they are going to ensure the great diversity for that, not only in the content, but also in the planning and preparation and the recruiting of talent. And also in regards to the budget, it is very confusing because about who they're paying and for the artists, yet to me, it seemed like this is a community theater group. So I didn't think that a lot of the talent that would, and the open auditions, I didn't think that those community members get paid to be a participant in it. So again, I think it was very unclear what community members versus professional artists and how that breaks down and how the budget would be used.
All right, does anybody have anything new, different to add to this application evaluation? Okay, let's go ahead then and finalize our scores. And if it's all right with you, why don't we do one more and then take a brief break? Is that okay? All right, okay, perfect. The LaFontaine Arts Council, Steve is our first reader.
Anna
No,
is in the
Anna's
waiting room.
get to leave.
Yep, Anna's already in the waiting room. We're good.
I'm glad you had that under control, Deanna. I'm doing poorly on it. Okay.
Well, as a resident of the region, it might be pronounced LaFontaine, but
Oh, sorry about that.
no, that's okay. It's up there in Indiana-ness. This organization presents school programs to pretty much all the kids in Huntington County, which is quite a task, and that's a large group of underserved population, pretty much by any definition. That's very appreciated. I like that they have a series of arts awards for students for a variety of disciplines, which is a great way to encourage participation and create curiosity in the arts. I like their attempts to not only target school-aged audiences, which is the core of the activity, but also other area adult and elderly residents. That helps bring other people to the table. They want to share every year people with experiences from different cultures. This year would be an Egyptian performer with song and dance. I like that. I would love to see, in addition to the performances, which the schedule is very busy, I would love to see, and I didn't see, and if somebody else did, please correct me, I didn't see any real opportunities for workshops, back and forth, little more one-on-one experience for students. That's a great opportunity to really solidify some of this learning. Administration-wise, the roles are clearly defined. They've got a good number of people to help make sure this thing happens. They have a new executive director who spent the better part of a year, they say, learning from and getting notes from their long-serving previous director. So kudos on that. That's it.
All right, thank you. And as our second reader, Christine.
I think really the only different things I had, I did appreciate how they had the board is engaged. The board actually goes out and gives the Artist of the Month awards, which I think is a great way to keep the board really interested in the mission. I thought that was a really nice piece, as well as the, I would echo what Steve said with the engagement. I felt like there was quite a bit of information in the application about engaging not only the school system, but Pathfinder Services and their constituents as well into the program. It appeared that they had a fairly decent feedback loop to as far as the performances were, and then to use that information to do the next year's program or to make changes. So it was nice to see a feedback loop included. I think that was really it.
Thank you. Does anybody have anything to add to that? Stephanie.
I just want to encourage, once again, I would like to see more information regarding the decent turnout for the public showing, and could you be a little bit more specifics? I just want to maybe encourage less overgeneralization. So, and an example with that would be like, it was a huge success. What would constitute a huge success? I would like to see more data-driven conclusion in regard to determining whether or not the project was successful and how to actually address that. And in the community engagement section, I think it would be helpful to have some specific demographics of the students and the community members served by the project. There are some things going into the schools, but what is the free and reduced lunch percentage? What are the demographics of those that you're serving? And I would also like to have more information about how the community was involved in the development and planning of this project specifically. I appreciate that you conducted teacher reviews, but what were the outcomes? How did you use the information that you obtained? Did the students receive the surveys as well? And what information was collected from those surveys to help shape the project?
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, then let's go ahead and finalize our scores. We can let Anna back in. And is a 5-minute break enough?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Sounds good, and Anna's in.
All right. Anna, we're taking a 5-minute break. Stand up and stretch. Pardon me, for some reason I got muted. I've been talking away. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. I am so sorry. What was the matter? And Maria, is she in the waiting room?
She
Yeah.
is not. She is not, but I will put her there. Give me 1 second.
Bye, Maria. We'll see you in a few minutes. Okay.
All right, we're good to go.
Our first reader here is Christine.
Sure. This was another one of the mural projects for another county. So I think some of the differences on this one versus the Allen County one, I really liked here how they did talk about having actual high school students involved in the committee. I think that is a really cool thing. And they did also speak quite a bit about some of the outreach specifically to the Amish community, which I think is lovely. Anything we can do to get our neighbors involved is always a good thing. Again, they created a mood board. It's difficult because they don't really go into all the details of exactly how the artist will be selected. And I know there has been some chatter on whether or not, it should be a local artist versus a national. They didn't go into that level of detail in the process. I did think that they did list out all the members involved in their steering committee, and it appears to be a pretty diverse group as far as backgrounds, which is kind of nice. Check my notes here. I thought that the timeline seemed very doable. As far as the, it was fairly specific with action steps. We didn't really actually get that with several of the others, so that was nice to see. As far as the financials provided, this is one of the few projects where the grant dollars they're looking for are a smaller portion. In many cases, the grant dollars have been a significant portion, and their match has been based on admissions, which I think is kind of scary. In this case, it does appear that they've got a fairly diversified budget. The expenses seemed very logical for what they're asking. I think really the main things I was missing was really just some of the details in the process on how they are going to select the artist and those types of things. But again, they're using an outside consultant who does have experience in this with helping with Art This Way in Allen County. And I think that can make a huge difference for some of the other counties doing this, to be able to draw on her experience actually having worked on murals before. So those were my main comments.
And thank you very much, Christine. And we want to thank Sarah for stepping in as being the second reader on this one. Sarah?
Oh, hi. Again, I think with this type of project, some of the confusion is, again, separating out what the grant application is responsible for and what is coming from the overall mural fest. Because although there is the consultant for the project, she is consulting with all of the counties. So I'm sort of unclear as to who is paying her fees, and do each of the counties have to contribute to that or not, or is that something that's being covered? Also, when I went back to look at another applicant, it doesn't seem that there is a consistency with how much they are stipend or payment they're providing to the artists. So I'm curious to how they come up with their figure, and was that determined, like I said, by the overall group, or is each county responsible for figuring out what they can pay the artist? So again, I think in this type of project also, it was unclear if each of the counties are required to raise a certain amount of money in order to be able to participate, or how raising the necessary funds versus, and what is the difference between doing this project on their own versus as part of this overall festival. So I think in the future, when there are these types of projects, when an overall organization is over, creating it and putting it together, but then each of the entities are responsible for certain components of the project as well as raising funds, it would be good to have a very clear understanding of the demarcation of the funds and where the revenue is coming from, and what is the role of the overall arching organization, because I didn't understand if also in their income, they're talking about the corporate and foundation sponsorships. And again, I didn't know if those are above and beyond what the overall entity, organization, overseeing organization is getting, or is this just, additional that they have to get? So I think that just lent a lot of confusion to understanding the responsibilities and especially with the budget for this type of project.
Thank you very much. Now, does anybody have anything they'd like to add?
I do. In looking at this in the project description, and I wanted to separate it, I didn't compare it to any other organization or application, and I felt that in the project description that there wasn't enough mention of the artist, Meet the Artist, or the mentorship program to explain what they were looking at that being in their community. There's not really any PR specific to LaGrange County, and specifically in the timeline, it was not the LaGrange County timeline. So where was their festival kickoff in this timeline, the PR launch, the events, the awards, more details about how you're going to promote it, and more evaluation details specific for LaGrange County.
Thank you, Anna. Anybody else have something they wish to chime in on? Different, new, or interesting. Okay, let's finalize our scores for that one, please. And Maria gets to still stay in that little tidy room. We'll move along to the Manchester Alive Main Street Chamber Alliance, and Anna's our first reader.
Yes, let me pull it up on the screen here. It takes a minute to negotiate the technology.
You're all doing a great job.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience, everyone. In regards to artistic quality, the project summary made me, again, think they were coordinating all 11 counties instead of saying this mural project was specific for the Wabash County. The mood board was very helpful and offered conceptual ideas from the committee of their own ideas that might have informed the artist, but it still allows the artist the opportunity to learn more in case they had other ideas. I would have liked to seen the mood board without the instructions in it, because there's kind of, it distracted me. They have a great location with the building being removed next to it to allow more access for future events and more opportunities for people to be able to see and walk by the mural, and coordination with the local school art teachers for student participation is a positive. Plus, they're looking at aspiring artists for the mentorship program to learn more about mural installation. They actually stated that, which is great. While in community engagement, while the 4 organizations on the steering committee are a great representative of the county, I would have liked to see involvement from an artist or school educator to strengthen the possible arts activities that could be presented in conjunction with the project. However, it is mentioned that the committee is working with other organizations, but it's not clear how or when it will occur in the timeline. The Meet the Artist program, event, and awards weren't mentioned in the narrative or in this part. A brief mention of opportunities with universities, and the mentorship program didn't really provide any concrete information about the arts experiences or how the steering committee is going to plan for those activities. The proposal is strong in identifying the committee does not want to exclude any people regardless of their circumstances, and they want to engage the entire community, which is great. They have great volunteer involvement and in-kind support, and the evaluation is not just about the number of people, which is what I thought they were saying. So perhaps they could create a video and a photo journal of the festival or the creation of the mural, have the mentee document their learning experiences, work with the school teachers to develop some art learning objectives, and assess student understanding and comprehension afterwards, especially if you're working with the university and the schools. And the participation numbers could have included the people actively experiencing it, not just those directly involved in the project. And then finally, for project management, a general overview of the committee responsibilities would have been helpful of what the committee was involved in, and it would have been stronger had more Wabash County specific information been included in the timeline, as it didn't mention any of the PR launch, the events, the awards, the mentorships, the project evaluation. The budget seemed reasonable as to me, and I hope that more information, if they're funded, will be included in the final report.
Thank you, Anna. Stephanie, do you have anything new to add to that?
Absolutely not. Anna just rocked that. So I agree with you 100%, Anna.
Thank you. Like that rockin' part. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Again, I just find that in the future, it would be very helpful for these kinds of projects when they are all under one umbrella, because in their proposal, they mentioned for budget that they have a line item for the project costs that has already been prepared by Arts United. So again, I'm confused of who's providing what when preparing this budget, and is it coming from the overall organization, and then I'm not sure what Arts United involvement is within the Mural Festival also. So again, I just think it's very confusing to be able to really understand what each of the counties is required, and because there's no consistency to any of these applications. And I know that we're not supposed to compare one application to the other, but the fact that all of the counties are participating in the same program, I think that it makes it very difficult when a lot of the components are not consistent from one to the other. So I would definitely suggest that going forward, that there seems to be more of a responsibility or regulation on the part of the commission to make sure that if there is this umbrella organization, creating it, and then what specifically are the counties each individually responsible for, and how they will specifically break out the budget. The other thing that I would like to see is that they talked about that this is to help with tourism and attraction to the area. And I would like to know what kinds of plans and things that they have after the festival that they are going to use to continue to market and promote, and how they're going to integrate the mural within their overall tourism initiatives and programs, and also artists. I would like to also know, again, if they are limiting their consideration of an artist, be it, is it someone from their county? Is it someone local, regional? I think that would be really important, because I think for having these be such local projects, it would be great to understand what is the relationship between the artists being selected and their involvement within the community itself within that county or within the region overall.
Thank you, Sarah. Does anybody else have anything new to add? Okay, then let's did you have something, Stephanie? Okay, let's finalize our scores then and let Maria come back and join us.
She's on her way back in.
She's on her way. Since she's the first reader for the next one. Is she in?
She is.
Okay.
I am here.
Great, because you are going to launch us into the Miami County Artisan Gallery.
Okay, great. In the artistic quality area, I would have liked to see more about how the applicant, make sure I'm in the right place here, how the applicant used the post-event comment forms and the results to inform the programming for 2020, as well as information as to how the artists were chosen for the project. I would also I like that the follow-up class, there are follow-up classes to the seminars. And since those were mentioned, I would like to know more about those classes as to how they augment the seminars in this whole process, as they mentioned that in the application. As far as community engagement, I commend the outreach plan the gallery is looking to implement. I'm curious who the local agencies are that will be contacted for the plan, since the narrative notes specifically 10 representatives and individuals that will be invited to the focus group. I was not sure if the Facebook videos were indicative of the videos that would be distributed for purchase, as was noted in the application, but I was just a bit concerned that I wasn't able to really see what the presenters were putting on the screen. So I wonder about the efficacy of training when it comes to the video distribution. Marketing didn't necessarily identify the specific groups noted in the community engagement narrative. I'd like to see more of that. It's nice to see that the IAC's idea strategies influence the applicants' expansion of their outreach. Also, when I was adding up cash expenses, it added up to 5,000 rather than 10,000. I didn't know if this was just a typing error. And also there appeared to be some math errors in the profit and loss statement, although the income still exceeded expenses. So I believe that is the end of my comments.
And thank you very much. Let's move on to Steve as our second reader.
Yes, brief echo how nicely they adapted the idea definitions into the entire planning process. That was a very good thing to see. Other than that, I think it's kind of nice to see a program that is targeted at adults and for their own purposes and possibly for business use as well, and to, you know, enhance the community as a whole. And it's not the kind of vision everybody has. That's about it. You covered most of it.
Thank you, Steve. Does anybody have anything new, different to add? All right, then let's finalize our scores. And Maria gets to go visit the waiting room again.
I'm moving her there now. Give me 1 second. She's there.
She's there, all right. The North Adams Arts Council, and Stephanie's our first reader.
Hi, okay, so I'm pulling this up. So this application, the project title is the Decatur Sculpture Tour. This has been going on for quite a few years. When it comes to artistic quality, I enjoyed hearing the past experiences, both positive and challenging. And I love that they're being considered in this year's project. Things are being changed. They're taking a lot of lead from the community and what they thought. They talked about rain being an issue and just how to really take all of those experiences. And I felt that you are listening to the community and considering feedback very well. I also appreciate that you are involving artists in the community in a variety of different ways through like a festival-like day. The specific examples of activities here are greatly appreciated. I love that they gave so much detail, and every time I had a question that came in my head, I felt like it was answered as I was going through, which was really a nice thing. And thank you for including the details about the artist selection process as well. I would like to see a little bit more information about the artist honorariums. You mentioned that they were increased, but what was the percentage and what was the research done to warrant that increase? I'm an artist myself, so I would never necessarily balk at an artist increase, but I think as a panelist, it's helpful to to kind of explain why and what the criteria for that was. And I also appreciate that the artists for this project come from all over the US, and that they're highly different, diversity is represented within those artists. For community engagement, I would like to see a little bit more demographical information about the communities you serve. Thank you for including the population amounts, but including demographical information would also be helpful. I don't know the specifics of the demographics of the Decatur area, so I would like to know that if possible. I appreciate the earlier section explanation about how specific feedback from the community was utilized in the development and planning. It might be helpful to kind of reference that here within the community engagement section, since you are engaging the community so well within that. For question number 3, I would like to see more specific information here. As an example, please define high percentage of free and reduced lunches. What does that look like? So I know what high percentages are within the Fort Wayne School District, but what would that be within the Decatur School District area? And how does that look, and based on what you guys are experiencing there? With the project management section, I would like to see a little bit more information in the project budget about artists and honorariums, like I mentioned, and that you mentioned that the IAC funds will be used to help pay for these honorariums. So there's just a blanket amount for honorariums. And so could you please be more specific in the breakdown of those amounts and how those artists will be paid? The one extra thing that I just kind of want to add here is I love that they are using the AutoCast option that allows for community to hear from the artist that you can take around through the sculpture tour. I just think that is the coolest added thing. It's just to be able to go do something like that. And I feel like it's very inclusive, and it gives the artists a voice as well. Even though their sculptures are being represented, I feel like it's great to hear from them and kind of have the basis of why they decided to do what they did do. The one thing I want to also add is that plein air is also a part of this sculpture tour and within this project, and there isn't a definition of what that is. So if we're not sure what plein air artists do, it might be helpful to kind of describe that just a little bit more, just to help those who are not as artistically versed to understand what that means.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And our second reader here is Sarah. Anything new or different?
Yeah, first of all, I think that they should take into account that the sculpture tour isn't just only targeted to those that are underserved. I think that they want to highlight just the benefit of public art and how public art is a positive thing and it's open to everybody, not only focusing and believing that this is just for the benefits of those that are underserved. I like the fact that they took into account really thinking about making it handicapped accessible. However, I would like to see, maybe especially because they have the tour that you can listen to, maybe how they were going to incorporate for other disabilities, and maybe to have the talking tour or something that for people who, or a special kind of tour for people who might be sight challenged, and maybe they also could have a program for people who are also deaf with someone who could sign the tour when the listening part of it tour. I would like to see some more incorporation of that, but it was really great to see that they were being mindful of addressing the needs of various community members. Also, I would like to know a little bit more about how they market and promote the tour to the region and the state, beyond just the website. But how do they generate the awareness, and also how do they keep that momentum going throughout the year? I would also like to see maybe a little bit more understanding, and maybe from their research and the surveys that they do, is it truly a benefit to keep the sculpture tour available, given some winters it is more mild, but is it, do people really get out to use it? Would it be more better to have it maybe just 3 seasons a year, and that could maybe change it a little bit, or maybe they could then, it would adjust some of the budgeting to different, to be able to add different types of programs or things like that. I just would like to see a breakout of how much attendance and participation they get for the winter months.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Anybody have anything to add to that? That is different. Okay, then let's finalize our scores. We'll let Maria back in and we'll send Stephanie to that waiting room. We're gaining on it, you guys.
All right, they're out and back in.
Out and back in. All right, we're moving on to our second to last, Science Central. And thank you, Anna, for serving as our first reader.
Thank you, Nancy. Let me organize myself a little bit here. Under artistic quality, I think they have very good collaborations with high quality arts organizations and artists. They have a thorough understanding of STEAM integration and what that means, and have explained it. Their past camp history is strong, and using past knowledge helps guide the project. Their description was very thorough. The community engagement area, it's the plan and the ideas were well developed and thorough details. They're being very inclusive and accessible and reaching out. I liked that they were offering 3 scholarships for SCAN foster children reaching underserved youth. It would have been helpful to know the total number of children participating in the camp versus the number of children visiting with parents as just as regular attendance. It is great the project will reach campers and the public through the tabletop activities. So they'll have the camp activities, and then adults and children who just come for regular admission can still experience some of those STEAM activities. I would recommend them, they list their Facebook page in the future as a social media area. In addition, you probably want to change the NEA logo on the website. The old NEA logo is up there right now. And that, I think that was very thorough. And then finally, in project management, the staffing is experienced. The training of staff and the use of specialists and volunteer roles is well defined. The timeline looks good and the financial statements are clear. A couple questions about the budget. Are the public admissions for the people that are not campers, do they offset the cost of the facility use in addition to the camp admissions? I was really unclear where the regular admission falls into this budget. And we don't really know the number of campers, and so couldn't really gauge how many actual campers were included in the camp admission income. And then the expenses include 9 camp scholarships. While we know 3 were for SCAN, I would have liked to know what the other 6 recipients were and how they were chosen. And those are my comments.
Thank you, Anna. And in the absence of a second reader, the panel as a whole will perform that role. Does anybody have anything different, new to add? Okay, then let's finalize our scores, and we will let Stephanie back in, and Maria. Now, Maria, you can't go anywhere. You've got to come back in. She'll go to the waiting room. Okay, I feel like we need a drum roll. Our final application for this panel this afternoon, To Be Honest. And Sarah, you're our first reader.
Yes, so this grant application is from an organization that is in the midst of their first year. So part of the difficulty is that there's no real evaluation or actually even completion of the students' work from this year, because that was going to be happening now. But I think that overall, the idea of having teenagers engaged in, doing journalistic video type of work, I think is good. There were a lot of things that I felt were very sort of unclear in the description of and how the execution of the project. It wasn't clear if the students use their own cell phones to do the video work, or if they are supplied the cell phones. Part of the issue is that the organization says that they are working to fill the gap for media arts in rural and inner city schools. But they don't make clear that in these schools, do the students who participate, how do they get the actual phones or video cameras to do the filming? And also because probably even if they do have smartphones, there's no explanation of how the students pay for, that's a lot of data time usage for doing the filming. There's also no indication of how the other types of equipment that the students need to do the editing and voiceover type of work and things like that I felt. The other thing that was made unclear is that although it participates with 12 Northern Indiana groups or schools, it wasn't really clear what the commitment and involvement and sign off of those schools are with the program, because in some cases they say that it is to make up for the lack of media arts, and in some cases there are schools that have impact institutes. So it was very unclear of how the execution and commitment of the students to the program through the schools and what the schools provide. And also because they brought up the issue that there's now a state law that if they have a media arts program, that one of the instructors have to have field experience, but they didn't necessarily define what is that field experience. And what I felt was from the staff of the organization, who they provided based on it, is they are all in the visual arts part of journalism and working in television. They did not have any actual journalists, reporting journalists, or who have experience teaching the aspects of journalism that is a big a part of this program, which is finding the stories, doing the reporting, understanding how to integrate personal experience within a journalistic environment. And so there wasn't really a very clear understanding of the curriculum that's provided to the students, that based on their saying that the students will walk out of this program with experience and knowledge of how journalism and media works, but there wasn't any understanding of what that curriculum is or evaluation and how it is integrated into the programs. Another concern that I had was that it seems like the overall vision for this program is very, very large and has lots of different tentacles that it's trying to reach. And my fear is that it's growing too fast before it's really able to finalize and secure sort of the best practices and the outcomes and the evaluation of the program. One of the other things is that clearly that they were supposed to have the students, who are doing these videos on various topics, that was supposed to be completed in May. But the issue again is that it's very difficult to understand the timeline of allocating for students who also have other responsibilities and activities during the school year. If the students take this as a extracurriculum, or do they take it as part of a media arts class? So there was a lot of questions that I think that they need to define more clearly about the program and in terms of the curriculum that they're providing. I mean, it's clear based on the outcome that the students will be producing these half-hour television or online programs or episodes, but it's not necessarily clear the steps that are taken and how that's measured to get them there. It also seemed that based on what they want to use the funds for, in part, it is because for the executive director, who seems to be the main conduit to connection with the schools or students participating, And that's to travel a span of over 4,350 square miles. I mean, that to me just seems like a very large group, and it may be better to sort of, again, sort of pare down a little bit and really utilize to create the best practices and then be able to expand it. But it doesn't seem that with the executive director and then the two other individuals that they work with, that they really have enough manpower and hours to really command effective relationships and to really make this a very effective program for the students. And then again, in the budget, it was very unclear because there is a line item for equipment maintenance, but I didn't understand if the students are then providing their own equipment, how that works. And then my other concern was that within the project activities, because this is really an arts grant and should be used for the execution of the art project itself, that they were now wanting to add a component that the groups of students will learn how to find and seek underwriters that would help it to become self-sustaining and generate revenue. And I'm not necessarily sure, I mean, it just seems that they're trying to do way too much in this program, and I'm not sure if that's really an element that would be appropriate for students who are in the media arts program. Maybe, that might be if they have a business program or something in the schools. So I was a bit, and then also the hope is that the project can continue to expand, and they want to take on larger media projects such as films and documentaries in addition to the TV series. But I think that in order to really be a successful organization, and like I said, they're just in the midst of their first year and they're already taking on larger projects, I think they need to scale back and really focus on developing the relationships and creating the curriculum and even having the measurements for the success of the program, which they won't have until well into the summer or fall when the programs are viewed and that they're watched through the PBS affiliates that they're working with. So I just think that they are scattering themselves very wide, which I'm not sure will help ensure the success of the program. And then also, I'm not sure how they really have the mechanisms in place to evaluate the effectiveness of the actual episodes. They talk about that they're going to get measured in terms of viewership, total number of people, but not necessarily if the content of the episodes resonate with their targeted audience, which are other teens. And so I think that absolutely needs to be put in there. It seems that there was an assumption made that based on, because the teens are picking the topics for the episodes that they create, that those topics are of interest to other teens, but that's not necessarily proven, or they don't have a way to determine if that is true. And so I would like to see a lot more how they're going to measure the success and the content, if it does indeed fulfill their mission. And also, they really didn't talk about how they were going to promote the programs and episodes, how they're going to generate awareness that they're out there. And they talk about that they want to provide the programming to other schools in Indiana, but they don't necessarily talk about how to provide curriculum components or aspects of how other schools can integrate this programming into their educational mix. So I think that they're, being a first year organization, I would like to see them really sort of focus in and pick some very specific areas and start there. And then once they have some measurement of success, I think that would be valuable. And I would really like to see some credible, experienced journalists from other modalities besides video involved. And also because they do talk about that the students can do blogging, it would be great if also they could implement also a component of the actual writing and reporting of stories as a nice complement to what they are doing in the video format.
Thank you, Sarah. Christine, do you have anything to add?
Just a couple of short things. I did appreciate the feedback loop that they have tried, or they plan on embedding in, where they're going to have national evaluators go in and look at the media impressions. The one thing I was concerned with was with a budget of this size, it would have been helpful to know when they have these other foundations and companies listed, if some of these budget dollars are actually pending versus committed. Because like Sarah said, this project is still in the mix, so it makes it really hard to really assess if they do have the funds they need to finish this, or to continue on, or to be sustainable. So even just a quick, you know, in parentheses, pending or committed would have been helpful on their budget numbers.
Anybody else have anything new, different to add?
I just have a suggestion. One of the things when I read this application, I absolutely loved the premise. I love what they were doing. I love that they're giving teens a voice. I love all of that. What I'm curious about is, would it be helpful for them to, and this is just a suggestion, but as I was going through this, I kind of agreed that I was concerned about which direction they were going, and would it be helpful for them to identify whether their focus is to teach media arts, or if it's solely, or if their focus is to use media arts as a tool to teach the 21st century skills that are needed for these teens. And I think if they can really hone into maybe using art as a tool, I think that would be incredibly helpful for this application, because it is a new program and it is a new project that is very promising, and I think it has a lot of potential. But I think if they can hone into whether or not what their immediate focus would be, I think that they would get a lot of response from that, and I think that would be a little bit more clear.
Thank you, Stephanie. Does anybody else have anything they're jumping up and down to add? Then with another drum roll, we'll finalize our scores, please. Thank you, Steve. We will also let Maria back in, and we will thank those guests that have joined us today.